Hope you enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. And we're ready to start our panel. So I'm really excited to introduce you to our panelists tonight. Jay Childs is the owner and director of JBC Communications in Portsmouth. Jay is an Emmy-honored documentary filmmaker who's been producing thoughtful programs and brand films for television, as well as corporate and nonprofit clients for more than 2 decades. And his latest film is Communities and Consequences too, which you just watched, and it's premiered on both New Hampshire and Maine public broadcasting. Previous documentaries of his, Food Fight, Inside the Battle for Market Basket, Communities and Consequences, the first one, and Caring for Mo have been broadcast on public television and in numerous theater runs, have won numerous awards at festivals in New England and beyond, and have been included in university case studies, curriculum, and forums. And recently, Jay was awarded New Hampshire Filmmaker of the Year from the New Hampshire Film Festival. Our other 2 guests both serve on the board of the Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote affordable housing in the 15 towns that are east of Lake Winnipesaukee. First is Bonnie Medico. She currently serves as the chair of the board of Eastern Lakes. Bonnie served as the chief of staff, director of personnel at Brewster Academy, which is a private boarding and day school in Wolfboro. She worked at Brewster for 27 years before retiring. And amongst her many duties there was trying to secure affordable housing for new employees who were relocating to the area. Bonnie also volunteers as a guardian ad litem for CASA New Hampshire. So through her professional and her volunteer work, she's become very familiar with the challenges that families in our region face in finding good quality housing that they can afford. And also we have Edie Damaris joining us tonight. She is a founder of Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition, and she served in many leadership positions with the organization over the last 16 years. Edie was a founding executive director of the Children's Center in Wolfboro, where she worked for 24 years, providing group and family childcare, early intervention, preschool, special education, and family services. I know Edie is passionate about serving her community. She's a recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award, presented by the Corporation for National and Community Service, and she's also represented the town of Wolfboro in the New Hampshire legislature from 2017 to 2020. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We're really glad that you're here. To our audience, if you have any questions as we go, just type them into the chat and we'll try to answer them as we go. But I'm going to start out with a question for Jay. Jay, I really enjoyed that film. I thought you did a great job capturing the essence of how hard it can be to have these discussions in local communities. So I was curious if you could share with us, like what are the key takeaways you hope that people get from watching the film?
Sure. The main thing I wanted for the second film to differ from the first film is we actually were approached by some of the people who supported our first effort. And, we've been talking about these issues for well over a decade. And a lot of it had to do with now with the workforce and the fact that companies could not find workers as they were trying to expand in New Hampshire, which is, everyone agrees, a great place for business. So, a lot of times things are not addressed until they hit the economy, and that's okay. So it hit the economy, and rather than simply relitigate what the problem was, we were really curious about what some, not all, but some of the pockets were around New Hampshire that were actively trying to address these issues of younger people being able to get a toehold in the community, housing, and companies looking for workers. And I think the one major takeaway from where I view it, and others may have other perspectives, of course, is that sort of what Andy Dean said in North Conway is we've been talking about this to death for a long time. And a lot of things that I would attend and a lot of meetings I would attend, the goal was we need to start a conversation. And what you're hearing now is, no, we need to really begin to start taking action. And just a couple of things that we saw was, one, a great example from the Upper Valley, employers not just advocating, but employers really stepping forward and showing up at planning board meetings, putting their teeth in the game and saying, we need this, we need that to happen. Because still at a lot of the meetings that I went to, you would have a project come up at a planning board meeting and you would have a dozen people show up against it, and maybe a couple show up who are for it. So employers and people really going beyond advocating and getting their teeth in the game. And the second thing is, a lot of what we did in the first film was trying to come up with statistics and charts and graphs, and people who are taking these to meetings and trying to advocate with the people who are there, either in select boards or city councils or planning board meetings. And what we saw in the film and what we've seen now is that some of those people just need to be replaced, and some of those people need people to run against them, and have people who represent, connect with this issue and want to do something about this issue, step forward and run for office, get tangibly involved. And some of that is what you saw in Keene. That was a great example of 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, younger people running, and most of them won for city council.
Thank you. Well, it's almost like a perfect segue. It's like we planned it this way, but I think that the taking action part is why we wanted to have Bonnie and Edie join us tonight. Could you start out by telling us, how did the Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition get started?
Well, we actually got started through an effort that was made, initiative from the Carroll County Friends of Families Coalition, that looked at all around the county and saw this issue years ago. This was back in 2003. And local members met in our local communities with our planning boards. And it was very interesting in Wolfboro because we found that the master plan had talked about it for 20 years, but nothing had ever been done. And so, but when we met with them, they agreed to form a committee, including the town planner, a few of the board members, and we got administrators from the major employers and agencies in town to also participate, including the Chamber of Commerce. We've brought in all of the different stakeholders and began working with them. We worked for 6 months and finally adopted a resolution of how we could address the issue of the zoning regulations and infrastructure needs. And it included the need also for a nonprofit community education group to try to provide the lead in the community education to get the community behind the issues and to understand the consequences of what was happening in our community. When we got done, both the planning board and the selectmen approved of the plan unanimously, which we thought was pretty amazing. And also at the time, the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority were both working with different housing coalitions around the state, providing training and how to do the community education. So we took advantage of that, and they were super helpful with us and how to frame our messaging. So they also, we recognized that this was a regional issue. So we weren't just working for Wolfboro. We were also working for the Southern Carroll County catchment area. So the Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition grew out of that group. And we affiliated with the Wentworth Economic Development Corporation and for a fiscal agent at that point. And we adopted the entire catchment area of Carroll County, the Southern Carroll County. We received our nonprofit status in 2005, and with the training and support of the state coalition began an aggressive community education program with the regional planning and zoning boards, with contractors, and with the general public. and thanks to some funding help from the Hampshire Finance Authority. We decided that to try to get a developer to build workforce housing in our region, but none were willing to even look at Wolfboro. They felt it was too much of a challenge because it was a difficult area to develop. And the development in Ossipee was actually in court, the nonprofit development. So they were afraid to come. But then we had our pivotal moments. We had first the positive reception of the key planning and zoning applications, the unanimous support of the workforce housing plan and goals from the selectmen and the planning board. Medico's willingness to affiliate and the community education resources from the state coalition. Then the $250,000 Memorial Beck Fund gift that we received the day after we were told we couldn't even consider moving a development forward with at least $250,000 behind us. It was a miracle. The numbers were exactly the same. Also, Jean Harriman, a local resident, sold us Harriman Hill land at 1/4 of its value. Then we were able to form a partnership with the Laconia Area Community Land Trust, your agency, which was LACLT at that time.
Yeah.
So these moments, plus the years of groundwork, gave us the needed zoning adjustments and approvals, the infrastructure expansion, the initial revolving resources, and professional expertise to bring 68 units of workforce housing to our area in Harriman Hill.
Well, and I think we have some pictures too of the Harriman Hill development. And we were so happy when you invited us. I mean, I wasn't here at the time, but I always get comments from people when I mention that we've developed workforce housing in Wolfboro. They say, Wolfboro, really? That's so surprising. And I say, well, I can't take the credit. All the hard work was done by local residents before
and you
we got
saved
involved.
our lives.
But it's a great project. And I don't know if Caitlin is able to pull up the pictures because she was having some issues with her Zoom, but we can show folks some photos here of Harriman Hill, which is the first two phases. Bonnie, do you want to describe them as we look at the photos?
Right. The first two phases of Harriman Hill came in. Harriman Hill 1 and 2 each have 24 rental units within each phase. The design is really superior. They're tucked away. They're within walking distance to downtown Wolfboro, but they're tucked away in a wonderful rural setting as well. Harriman Hill 1 and 2 are density zoning development, so that what you're seeing are the 48 units and as well as the Harriman Hill 3 are all on about 5 acres of land, and the balance of the other 25 to 26 acres are in a conservation easement. So it's definitely a win-win for the town as well as for the inhabitants, the residents of Harriman Hill. We've got, at the last count, of the 48, within the 48 units, we have folks, some that are retired that are in there, employees within our school district, with employees within the healthcare services in the area, retail, restaurant, just it serves a wonderful purpose. And a waiting list, unfortunately. They're beautiful apartments, a wonderful property management company that really keeps the development just gorgeous. And definitely a need for more of housing like this because of the long waiting period. And I go to a number of, before COVID hit, I would go to a number of different, not only affordable housing coalition meetings, but homeless group meetings as well within Carroll County. And the one question that seems to come at each time is people within the audience feeling that there is no need for affordable housing in Wolfboro because everybody can afford it. So there's that stigma, the perception that it's a wealthy town, and it is. Can't deny that the waterfront property certainly helps the rest of us with our tax basis and all. But there is for every huge home within sight of the lake, we have a number of employees and families that need to find affordable housing in between just the attraction of the area, as well as second home buyers and Airbnb. It, like everywhere else in the state, it's just becoming significantly challenging for our employees, the employers that make the whole economy work, as well as just the community that you want. So
you started in 2005 was when the organization was formed. And
Correct.
then the first phase of these apartments was completed in 2012.
12.
So there was, it takes a while. These conversations take a while. I think that's important for people to know, but the results can really be phenomenal. What, and I know, like Edie said, it was almost a miracle that you had someone donate some funding and the land as well, which is huge because that's often an issue, is finding the right site. But I'm curious if you could share with the group, you know, what's next for Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition? What else do you have planned?
Well, we're very excited to hope that we plan on the Harriman Hill 3 project would break ground early this summer, and Harriman Hill 3 is actually within that same cluster, Harriman Hill 1 and 2. It will complete the Harriman Hill project, and that's going to be 20 standalone affordable homes for families, which is just so exciting. And it has been a long road to get here, and Lakes Region has just been phenomenal because we'll be selling the property to Lakes Region for the development. And it's between engineering and plans that have changed and COVID just creating challenges on top of the current challenges. So that's very exciting, the new homes that are coming. And again, thanks to Lakes Region for making that happen and for partnering with us. We also have a partnered, we had planned a community event last year, COVID hit, and we had to sort of put a halt on that, partnering with Wentworth Economic Development Corporation that Edie had mentioned, WEDCO, as well as Huggins Hospital, local hospital in the area, for a summit, which was called the Regional Summit for Healthy Living. And just we wanted to offer it as a community education event to bring folks from the communities that the hospital and WEDCO serve, as well as Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition, to bring members of the community in to identify what they feel is necessary for healthy communities, and what are the strengths and what currently do we have that make our communities healthy, and where are the areas that perhaps we need to focus on to make them healthier. And certainly affordable housing is a huge component in creating healthy environments. So there's that event that we hope will be taking place now with our partners in the fall. And finally, we had the opportunity 2 years ago with some land, 35-acre parcel of land that became available, which is adjacent to Harriman Hill. And so the coalition was very fortunate that we could take that opportunity and purchase it. And we put it sort of in a bank to hold it, hoping that we will be able to, in the foreseeable future, partner with locate a nonprofit developer to see if they would be able to build more affordable housing within the area. So we have that land available. So that's what we're doing. And we are a very small volunteer board. So it's been, and we're also in the process of building a trail on Harriman Hill to finalize part of that as well, and doing a fundraising effort for that. So those are our plans that we have right now.
Big plans.
Yeah. Exciting.
We do have a question in the chat. I think this would be, anybody can answer, but maybe geared actually towards Carmen. What top 2 or 3 things do developers say they need to make a project like this work in a small Lakes Region town?
That's a great question. So we are a nonprofit organization that develops housing, and really the biggest thing, I mean, it's finding a site that can work is often the most difficult thing. Between zoning and often there not being infrastructure, it can be really tricky to find a site where you can make the numbers pencil out and you can actually do the project for the amount of funding that you're able to pull together for it. So I think partnering with communities, like the partnership that we have with Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition, is really what made this work. You know, they were the ones that did all the work at the local level and got the community behind the idea of building workforce housing, and they were the ones that secured a site, and so that made it possible for us to actually build the apartments, and now these 20 single family homes that we're going to be doing this year. So I think that's really key, is either partnering with the community or with a local housing coalition like Eastern Lakes to figure out these pieces, finding the site, figuring out the infrastructure. Those are really the 2 big barriers. So thank you.
Yeah, and we had another comment in the chat, not really a question, but just that a constituent received a letter saying that their application had been time-stamped but not opened yet because of the waiting list, I would think. And they've been staying in a hotel in Wolfboro since March 9th and need to move out by May 21st. Just, you know, just showing the reality of the need for more housing, and that, you know, the need is there even in communities like Wolfboro.
Absolutely. Well, I was curious, Edie and Bonnie, if you could maybe comment on what advice do you have for other towns that want to do something about the housing affordability issue? How should they get started?
I think that if they want it to happen in a town, I think that they have to make the investment in educating the town, the people, so that by the time we got to the abutters, we just had one cluster that gave us a lot of trouble. The rest were, most of the people in the community were fine with it. I think starting there is a good place to start. And also the other thing is to make sure that the zoning is appropriate, that it's permitted. And I know with thanks to the programs that we were able to work with through New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and Charitable Foundation, we were able to bring a lot of workshops to our community planners and board people. It's important, especially in town, many of our smaller communities where they don't have a professional town planner, excuse me, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit hoarse tonight. And they don't have a paid professional planner. And with elections every year, there's a turnover. So there's a constant need for maintaining that education, that community education to the planning boards and zoning boards to make sure that the infrastructure in what is permitted is there. Because developers come in, and if they're not going to come in if they have to do that groundwork. It helps if the local community initiative can do that, so that also the desire is seen by the elected officials in the town that it's the community that wants the development, not some developer coming in thinking they can make money in your community and do something. So I think you change that perception.
I think another important aspect is similar to where Mount Washington Valley has done such a wonderful job in getting the businesses behind the efforts as well, because without that economic engine working within any town, it certainly is going to be a huge impact when you talk about how do you pay for your schools, how do you pay for your police and your fire, the resources that are needed. And you know, every year when you come up to vote for an operating budget, and having business leaders lead, or at least be a strong voice in regards to the need for affordable housing, so that they can attract and retain qualified employees who want to be in our area, because it is such a gorgeous area. that's another critical component. And the continuing education that, the community education that Edie spoke about is critical as well.
Thank you. Well, and I think I'll close it out with one last question for Jay in terms of, you know, just based on what you've heard about the Wolfboro experience and what you've seen in the other communities that you visited while you're making the film. What do you think is the same, different, kind of parting thoughts? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Can't unmute myself. Oh, there we are. Hello. I think two things that really stand out to me from what I saw are, in some ways, understanding that many of these boards are volunteer and they have other jobs. I wanted to make sure people saw that Steve Porter is also the meat manager at a Hannaford's. He's not just a select board member. Is that you need to, as citizens, it helps if you do some of the heavy lifting. So what Victoria Laracy and Andy Reid did, working with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, rather than saying, we need more affordable housing, we need to rewrite some ordinances, we need to get these things done, they literally did that. They literally rewrote wrote a draft of an ordinance that would make that region more friendly to workforce housing. I think working with New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, and then brought it to the board and found that by doing some of that heavy lifting, they had a much more receptive board than they would have had in the past. And a byproduct of that, almost kind of flipping on its head what Edith said, is if you're a citizen and you're looking to have things happen, if you have somebody like a Carmen or a Bonnie or an Edith or a Victoria Laracy or a Steve Porter or a Jeff Gowan in your community that gets this and wants to take action on it, contact them and just say, what can I do? How can I be of help? You know, buttress them and give them the person power and the resources they need to be able to kind of push this rock forward a little bit. And I think you'll find that you'll have more success. It may even be just a matter of, there's this meeting coming up. We need people who are, you know, for this. Please show up. Please call your friends and have them show up. But if you have 2 or 3 people, even one in your community who gets it and wants this to happen, reach out to them and ask, how can I help? Action be taken.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate everybody on our panel. You're not just for joining us, but for your leadership on these issues. It's really critical to our state and the future of our state and our region that we figure this stuff out. So I echo Jay's comment, you know, reach out. We're happy to help if anybody is in, you know, talking about this at their planning board or their select board and they'd like us to come and do a presentation. We're happy to do that. New Hampshire Housing is a fantastic resource as well to provide data and information and technical assistance. So there are definitely resources out there for towns that would like to take a step forward on it. So thank you all for joining us tonight. It is 5:32 and we promised we'd have you done at 5:30. So we've gone a couple minutes over, but I really appreciate you all joining us and look forward to seeing you in real life soon, hopefully. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity,
Thank you
Carmen.
to Lakes Region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.